We're started. Good evening, everybody, and welcome to our SCORE workshop this evening on Everything is Everything, 10 Rules for Building Your American Dream. We're lucky enough this evening to have as our guest speaker, Mr. Steve Beeman. Steve is a 40-year veteran of economics and finance, notably founding and co-founding building and then selling Chicago investment analytics to Charles Schwab. My name is Ed Peterlins, and I am with SCORE. I'm a SCORE member. I'll be emceeing this event this evening, and I have a few housekeeping things I need to go over with everybody before we get started. I'll try to get through these as soon as I possibly can, and then we're going to turn this over to Steve. So first thing that everybody needs to know, this is in webinar format. And in webinar format in Zoom, folks, the only way you get to talk is if I unmute you. But we do want to make this a very, very interactive workshop this evening. It's so much better when these get interactive and we get you asking questions and comments and a dialogue, with Steve. So here's the way we go about doing that. And many of you are now familiar by this time with Zoom. It's been around now for 4 or 5 years that everybody's used it. But for those who don't know, you simply go down to the very bottom there. There's an icon that says chat. You click on that, you put your question, you put your comment into that chat box. And Steve is going to pause from time to time. And at that point, I'll call out your name and I will actually unmute you, and then you talk directly to Steve with your question or comment. Okay. The other method in which to get interactive in here is there's another icon down there. You'll see it just to the right of the chat, and that's a raised hand icon. Okay. If you just click on that, you don't even have to put your comment or question. When we pause, I will unmute you and let you talk directly to Steve, okay? So that's the deal on this. Try to keep all of your questions, folks, in the chat. In the Q&A, if there's any questions you have about SCORE or anything like that, please put those in there, but anything related to Steve's presentation tonight, try to keep into the chat box if you would, okay? Next thing is this is being recorded as we speak. And what I will do tomorrow is I will send all of you the link to the recording, I promise. And Steve will share his slides with me. And I will email all of you both the link to the recording and Steve's slides. So that will happen tomorrow. Okay. So that's about all I have for housekeeping, but this is a SCORE workshop. So I don't know, many of you probably are SCORE clients. Some of you may be SCORE members for all I know, but there may be some people who don't know who SCORE is. And this is kind of directed to you. I'll give a short definition of who SCORE is, what we do, and if you need help, how you can go ahead and contact us. So let me start off with saying SCORE is an all-volunteer organization. We are an independent 501c3. We are a national organization that has been around for over 60 years, actually close to 70 years now. And we're all volunteers. We're national. We have approximately 10,000 members nationwide. We have chapters in all 50 states of the United States. And I'll sum it up real easy. When people ask, what does SCORE do? It's real simple. We help people succeed in business. And the way we do that is we offer free mentoring. Remember, I talked about those 10,000 volunteers, and those are folks from all kinds of diverse business backgrounds and diverse businesses that are members with SCORE. So we offer you access to all of those folks in terms of helping you out if you are interested in starting a business. If you have an existing business, we'll be more than happy to work with you in the specific areas that you need help with. So you get a lot of diversity in terms of intellectual capacity. When you're looking for somebody, you can find people with the skill set you need. And almost more importantly, you can find people who've been in that business that understand the different nuances of that business. So when you're starting a business or have an existing business, really, folks, you cannot beat the information that you can get from SCORE mentors. And we're here to help you, and we're free in terms of that aspect of our services. The other thing to let you know is SCORE not only works with for-profit businesses, SCORE works with nonprofits. And again, of those 10,000 people, a couple hundred people have started nonprofits, been on nonprofit boards, work for nonprofits. So there's a lot of expertise in that area too. In fact, we run workshops at least once a month specifically geared to nonprofit organizations. So if you're one of those folks and you need help, folks, come to us. We're there to help you. The other thing we do is we provide community education to people, just what we're doing this evening, where we either bring in an outside speaker with some expertise, such as Steve Beeman, or we bring in some of our internal people with specific expertise and hopefully educate you and help you glean some information that you can apply to starting a business or making your business more successful. So recently, we've had to go to a fee structure on these, but we hope it's a nominal fee, and the nominal fee pays for the information that you're gleaning through attending these events. So we really appreciate your being here this evening. And one part of this too that I need to go over with you, and I will put this in writing to everybody tomorrow. If you need help from SCORE, how do you go about doing it? And again, remember, this is free. This is for mentoring requests. You simply go to our website, score.org. You click on Find a Mentor. You'll be given two options to find that mentor. You can do it yourself, and I don't know, we're based here in Chicago, but you could get a mentor that lives in California if that person's got the skill set and the business experience or the history of a business you want to get into. You could go ahead because every SCORE member has a profile, and you can pick your mentor by the profile, that's in there. Now, that's a little bit of work. There's a little bit of filtering that goes along with that. If you don't want to go that route, there's a very more simple route, and that is you simply click on Find a Mentor, you enter your contact information, you give us a brief description of the type of help you're looking for and the type of business you're in. You submit that. Our client assignment team will assign that to a SCORE mentor that matches your request for help. And that mentor will contact you via email. We'll assign that mentor within 24 hours of receipt of your request. That mentor will then contact you within 48 to 72 hours of the request and will contact you for sure via email and then follow that up with texts and phone calls. So, folks, we're here to help you. We're here to help you succeed in business. So please, please, if you haven't already, utilize our SCORE services. We're here to help you. So without further ado, I'd like to turn this over to my friend Steve Beeman. Again, folks, the topic tonight is Everything is Everything. 10 rules for building your American dream business. Steve, the floor is yours. Let me know when you want to pause for questions, and then I'll get the audience involved, okay?
Well, Ed, I want to thank you for that and for that very kind introduction. I consider you a friend. And for those of you who don't know SCORE, I urge you to take advantage of this organization. When you look at business groups that support the entrepreneur and the independent business community, SCORE is at the top of that list. So, again, I'm not a paid spokesman for them, but I could go a long time on that. I appreciate you all joining me, and I want to first give you a sense of why this is entitled Everything is Everything. I deal a lot with the independent business community, and I talk to an awful lot of people from coast to coast. I'm on radio a lot, and I do things to provide whatever support I can to this entrepreneurial America. Well, I was having a dinner with somebody, and they said to me, Steve, you've seen the highs and the lows, the peaks and the valleys. What's the one thing you would tell people that's critical to success? And I said, well, the problem is it's not one thing. It's a host of things, and they're all important. You can't have one in exclusion of the other. So everything is everything. And that was the genesis of an ebook that I wrote, and thus this presentation. So that's why we're here. Just a little bit of detailed background. I did start my career in Wall Street. I was a broker for E.F. Hutton back in the 80s. You remember when E.F. Hutton talks, people listen. So I learned finance early on. I then went to Wharton Econometrics, where I served as an economic consultant to the Fortune 100. I had terrifically fun experiences in that. Sometime, if we get a chance, I'll share with you the experience I had hosting Soviet people throughout the United States in the late 80s. That was a fascinating experience. But that led me to start Chicago Investment Analytics in 1990. That was one of the early fintech companies. They didn't even call it that then, but that's exactly what it was. We built computerized alpha models to help investors, institutional investors, pick better stocks. I ran that for 10 years, sold it off to Charles Schwab. And then subsequent to that, and since then, I've been involved in every kind of venture capital, private equity, as a funder, a operator, you name it, I've done it. Everything from hard assets and real estate to operating businesses to entrepreneurial startups. And I have seen the gambit. As Ed knows, I've seen great success and I've known some pretty sizable failure. So, all of that 40 years of experience comes into putting tonight's presentation together. I hope that you take away from it really important topics that you can benefit from. To me, it's very real stuff, and I hope it is for you. And I urge you to reach out if I can give you more. So, I'm going to get started on the number one item on the list, which is attitude. And I will tell you, attitude is everything. And I know you've heard it your whole life, but the fact of the matter is, you cannot control your circumstances. You can only control your response. I think it was Robert Schuller who said, as I look at my life, I realize that 95% of life isn't it's 5% is what happens to me, 95% is how I react to what happens to me. And we can't lose sight of the fact that you can't control everything. You have to learn to control what you can and let go of the rest. I was involved with a group of psychiatrists years ago, and they had centered work around a book called Letting Go. And it's all about how to let go of those things you can't control. We've all been through the peaks and valleys in life. It's very hard to always come out of those valleys and unpack that stuff from your back and carry on. But the first thing we have to do is get our attitude to say, what's behind me is behind me, and what I can't control, I can't control. It gives you a perspective on which you can go forward. And that ties into my second point of optimism is strength, victimhood is servitude. The fact of the matter is, we are not victims in the United States. It's almost hard pressed for me to find a person born in the United States who isn't already a victor. We are so blessed to live in an economy and a country that understands individual liberty. I know we have our weaknesses and we have our problems, and those are myriad, they're all over. But the bottom line, we are in a position where we can be victors in life and we can go forward with an optimism that says, I can do, not the pessimism of, well, I'm not sure I can this time. There's something, you've all heard of the IQ and the EQ, the intelligence quotient, and the emotional quotient. There's also something called the AQ, and it's the adversity quotient. And it's a measure of how hard you'll sustain in the face of trial. They use it as an image, if you will, of people climbing a mountain. Some people will never start to climb the mountain because they look up and say, it's just too tall. I can't do it. Some people will go up 10, 15 feet and look down and go, I'm higher than I ever thought I was. I'm stopping here. But there are those of us in the world of the entrepreneur and the independent business who just climb the mountain as high as it will go. And we do that because we don't know any better, frankly. But it is that attitude that says, I can do. And so then I follow that into your mindset that creates a ceiling. You've heard your attitude determines your altitude. It is absolutely, absolutely true. And as a visual image here, I was thinking of the idea of a sunrise and a new day. I talk to people all the time, and many of them are going through really tough times. Could be a financial collapse of the business, a divorce, illness or sickness. There are a lot of things that can go on in life to give us these hiccups. But this idea of a new day, tomorrow's a fresh day. I live to fight another day. We can't carry yesterday into tomorrow and have it bog us down. We have to learn that tomorrow is the first day of the rest of our life for real. And I've been here. So when I talk to you about it, I promise you I'm speaking from experience, not from an academic perspective. So, my major goal here for all of us today is to learn to inspire people to take ownership of their mindset as a foundation of their success. When we go out of here tonight, we need to be the ones to mentor people into those better attitudes, into that view of life that says, I can do this. Because if we have a team of people in our business or our family and we don't believe we can do it, well, they're not going to know where to follow. So it becomes super critical for us to follow this. I'll give you one last thing here. And what really, really got me started on the positive attitude stuff is in 1979. I'm dating myself, but I ran into something called The Psychology of Winning by Dr. Dennis Waitley. This was an audio program that highlighted five internal characteristics and five external characteristics of winners in sports and in business, in aeronautics. And Dennis Waitley put that into a concise format. I urge you, go to YouTube, see if you can find The Psychology of Winning from Dennis Waitley. It is absolute steak when it comes to this kind of stuff, and you will not be sorry. So let me go to the next one. And this goes without saying, but how often do we think of it? Work hard on everything. Effort compounds. Joy and happiness and satisfaction come out of hard work. One of the worst things I see entrepreneurs having, and I've been here, so I promise you I speak from experience, is what I've called a bunker mentality. When you've got so much going against you that you sit in the quiet of your own office and don't interact with people because you don't know where to go. That's a point at which you have to start to go out and get your efforts to compound by working hard with other people. You have to focus on what moves the mission forward. I go to Apollo 13. Failure is not an option. When you have a business and you're dealing with those kinds of problems that we all get, and you say this is an unresolvable problem, you have to outwork it. Again, I will go back to promoting SCORE and Ed Peterlins, how valuable a resource it is to have a friend, somebody who's not going to judge you, but they're going to help you solve these incredibly complex problems that we all get. But they're not going to get solved if we don't work our tails off on every aspect of our business all the time. It has to be consuming. And then I talk about professionalism because we've all been there when you don't feel like making that next sales call, or you don't feel like meeting with that banker, or you don't feel like that next meeting with a lawyer, but you have to. We as professionals rise above it. We put our noses to the grindstone and we just say, you know what? This is my job. It's my path. It's my journey. And I am going to handle my responsibilities. We don't let it get to us. We don't ever let that door close on our own attitude. And we work hard to come up with solutions that otherwise might not be available. And again, my major goal here is that we reinforce the discipline so it creates unstoppable momentum. Hard work begets its own success. And if you've ever been part of a team that has synergy, you'll experience this, where a 1 + 1 + 1 can equal 10. I've experienced that once in my life in business, and it was magical because the hard work compounded and it made all of us work better, smarter, and with more joy in our hearts than we otherwise would have. So, the point number two is to work hard on everything. Number three, this one I talk to people about it, but big dream big on everything. You've heard the old thing, it's easier to go from 1 million to 10 million than it is from 0 to a million. And that's true. It's no harder work to go raise 10 million than 100 million. Just put another zero on the piece of paper. The work is the same. You've got to put yourself in a mindset of dreaming big because without vision, discipline becomes enormously difficult. And big dreams, they'll call you out. They'll make you have the courage you need to go forward. It's that conviction of knowing I'm right. I will tell you, when I started Chicago Investment Analytics, I was coming out of Wharton Econometrics and I was making a very good income there. And I'm talking the lifestyle we all dream of, right? Private jets, first class hotels, the whole bit. When I started CIA, I had countless people say to me what a fool I was. But I was convicted in that I knew it was right. And I had that conviction to say, I can build this into something that changes the world. And it's that belief that drove in the times that you're otherwise down in the dumps because nothing takes off on a straight line. You go up, you go down, you go up, you go down. And in those down times, you've got to believe and you've got to have a dream that's big enough that it empowers you and excites you to follow through for the next day. So tonight, write down a bold dream that you've been postponing. I keep a book with me and I write down constantly what's my vision, what's my dream. And I will tell you that doing this webinar with you is part of my dream. If there's one thing I'm going to do in the rest of my life, it's give back everything I've learned in the last 40 years. I love the small business community. I love the independent entrepreneur. It's a passion of mine. I absolutely adore it. And I will do anything I can to help them. And it's the conviction of that dream that makes me want to do this stuff in the face of everything else. So I hope that you can look at a bold dream of yours that maybe you've been postponing and you can say, you know what? I don't want anybody else to know this, but this is my dream. Well, then take a step toward getting there. And I urge you once again, utilize Edit Score. So, Ed, if you want, we can take questions or comments. I'm kind of moving through this and
Yeah, let's get the audience involved here. Okay, anybody would like to share what they might have for kind of a bold dream and have been postponing it? Anybody want to comment on the stuff that Steve has gone over already? I'm going to call on just a couple people and maybe just get a response to hopefully get a little conversation stimulated here. How about Jason Brown? Jason, do you wanna talk a little bit about any of the stuff Steve's reviewed? Any bold dream you've been postponing? Uh, that you want to get into?
I don't know that I've got anything that I want to talk about specifically
Okay,
right
that's
now.
okay. That's
Thank
fine.
you for asking me.
Yeah,
well, I hope, Jason, you're finding this at least enlightening to some extent.
yeah.
Well, yes, yeah, I am.
Okay. Is there anything specific you'd like to comment or you have a question on regarding what Steve's gone over?
Not yet, not yet.
Okay. We'll keep you in the bullpen here, okay?
All
And
right,
know
sounds good.
and hang in there. There's a lot of good stuff. Steve's got to go yet. We've got Abdullah. Abdullah, anything you'd like to comment on, what Steve's talked about thus far in, the steps on this? Abdullah, you have to
Abdul, are you being shy?
That's okay, Abdullah. That's okay. If you have nothing, that's okay too, but you can unmute yourself.
Thank you, thank you. That's good. Thank you so much.
Okay.
Again, as with Jason Abdullah, I just hope that you're enjoying what we're talking about and it is stuff that resonates within you to help you move forward.
Yeah.
Thank you so much. Thank you.
And don't be shy, guys. If there's stuff you want to talk about, go that applies to, what Steve's going over, please do put your questions or raise your hand. We'll be happy to listen to you. How about Jim? Jim, anything with you? Jim, I got to get you to unmute yourself, pal.
You asking
There
me?
you go. There you go, Jim. Yeah.
All right. Yes, actually, some of what he said sort of resonates with me. I've been a union sheet metal worker for 30 some years, and my two bosses decided they were going to retire, and I was kind of stuck with what I was going to do. So at 59, I decided to take what money we had and stick it into their business. And I got two other partners, and I did that 2 years ago. So it was definitely one of those things a few people told me was a little bit crazy, but I believed in it, and so far it's working out pretty well. But I'm staying up with these seminars you guys do. I don't know if you know who does these or not, but it's that I've seen you. You're like a part of my family almost. I see you all the time now, but um, just from one side most of the time. Yeah, this is great stuff. It's good to get some reinforcement to know that there's other people out there that think the way I do, and I don't know. It's scary, but you do what you
We
got to do.
we are most definitely part of a community, and it's a community of people who are maybe a little bit brain dead, but we move forward on our own visions in our own way.
Very
Yeah.
good. Very good. Well, keep it up. Jim, well, like I said, you got other comments, please go ahead and make them. Who else we got here? How about Krishna? Krishna, do you want to go ahead and any comments you'd like to make?
I'd love to. Steve, I love the way you speak. I love the energy. I'm still very early in my career. Just transitioned from like the life sciences to management consulting in the healthcare field, and am really excited now about starting my own company. Actually, recently just became a SCORE volunteer a few months ago, not because of my experience by any means, but really just because I really want to learn about what's out there, what other people are doing, and how I can help out. No questions directly from me so far, but I love what you're saying, and I'm listening.
Well,
Okay.
kudos to you for doing that. Stay with it. And again, I urge all of you to take advantage of SCORE. Boy, oh boy, are these guys valuable. In fact, Ed, I need to talk to you about becoming a mentor for me on this whole thing I'm doing.
There you go. Okay. Next person, Melissa, allowed you to talk. You want to have any comments for Steve and any questions about any of the stuff he's covered already?
No questions. I'm just excited to hear about more of Steve's experience and what he has to share with us.
Okay, I'm keeping all of you guys off of mute, but just raise your hand if there's something you want to talk about, okay? So with that, I'm going to turn it back over to Steve.
And
Steve?
I want to comment on Melissa's comment because it's nice that you want to hear about my experiences. I promise you, I could go all night. I have lived a very interesting life, if nothing else. But in fact, Ed and I, we did a seminar, one of these webinars not too long ago on the coming digital economy, and that was kind of a different spin, but it was quite interesting. I think, Ed, you'll agree it was
Yes.
interesting stuff. But let me continue here because I want you to learn to love everything you do. It is, in fact, passion that turns work into purpose and takes the drudgery out. It's that belief that what you're doing benefits others. I'll give you an example on that. So I had a group that was out doing sales at one point, and I went out with a salesman on a call. And halfway through the meeting, he was presenting to a buyer. Halfway through the meeting, I said to the buyer, "Excuse me, would you allow us to step out for a moment?" So the buyer, like, "Yeah, okay." Walked down the hallway and I looked at the guy and I said, "If you ever do that again, I will fire you on the spot." And he said, "What are you doing?" And I said, "You're pitching your product." Now think about it. He's like, "Well, I thought that was my job. I'm a salesman." And I had to explain to him that no, your job as a salesman is to solve a problem. Quit being so self centered. Think about the other guy. Align your task with his strengths. And it changed his career because the idea of being self centered in business doesn't work. What are you doing to help the other guy? And that's what you have to get a mindset of. And if you learn to love that, then you've got a great life because it's never work. It's fun. And it does, as it says, it multiplies your energy because it's that passion from inside that says, wow, I can't wait to get up in the morning. And I've been there, by the way, with all of you when you get up and the sun comes up and you just want to hide your head and go, I'm not getting up today. I can't face this, whatever that problem is. But if you can get up and you face it and you love what you're trying to do, you'll get it resolved. So, as a major goal here, reconnect with yourself to get those daily and deeper purposes. Try to list 3 ways in which your business can help a customer. I think it was Krishna, you're doing management consulting, right? I tell you from the bottom of my heart, if you do it for you, you'll fail. If you do it for the money, you'll fail. If you do it because you love their business and you want to help them for real, you'll make tons of money. I don't think, I know one guy who worked for money and made money, but of all the people I've known who made money, the ones who did it for real are because they loved what they did and they just happened to get paid for it. And that's a magic in life. So learn to love what you're doing in the deepest sense, and therefore love your customers for what they're doing. And never, ever be self centered, because love isn't self centered, it's outward looking. And when you look at their needs, you'll find your own business thrives. And then with that comes humility, because pride blinds, humility sharpens. I mean, what can you say about it? I have been in circumstances where I've made a lot of money and I've been on that high horse feeling pretty good about myself. But sometimes you lose your humility, and sometimes you don't know what you don't know, and you don't admit honestly to yourself that you're out of your depth. To be humble with ourselves and to look in the mirror and say, I don't know the answer to that question. I don't know how to solve this problem. It's never wrong to find a resource like SCORE and to say, hey, I need help. To be humble and to need help is a good characteristic. On the bottom here, I put to ask one trusted person for honest feedback. One of the biggest compliments that I've gotten in my life came from people who said, Steve, the reason I love to work with you is you don't turn down advice. And I don't, because I know dang well I don't know all the answers. I've spent 40 something years playing in this space. And I'll be darned if I don't learn something new every day. So have the humility to say, I need help. I can't do this on my own. You've got resources like SCORE. I urge you, and you'll hear me say it time and time again, but I urge you, take advantage of it. Let Ed and his team be an accountability partner for you. And learn through that humility to say, hey, I'm really good at this, but I'm not so good at this, and I need help on that. It's not embarrassing. It's not something we should be ashamed of. We all need help. And there's healthy help that you can get. And with that, then be generous. And I say that from the bottom of everything I am. Giving multiplies abundance, it doesn't shrink it. The more you give, the more you'll get. Share your knowledge, share your credit, share your opportunities, share your beliefs. Generosity will build trust. And I can tell you that the more generous you are with your ideas, with your time, of course, with your money and your material resources, but of yourself. And I want to go back to Krishna because I relate with the management consulting thing on that. The more you give, the more they'll respect you, and the more ultimately they'll pay you. But if you're there to get from the get-go and you're there to get for you, they're going to see it and they're not going to want to be with you. So learn to give, learn to be generous in everything you do, because it builds that trust and that relationship, and it builds legacy. The people I've known who've been highly successful, and I promise you, I've dealt with billionaires. I mean, I can't say they're good friends, but I can talk about the people like Charles Schwab that I knew very well, Lee Cooperman from Omega Partners. These people I know, I mean, I worked with the Soros people. I know a lot of these super rich people. I know the ones who are fulfilled and happy are the ones who are doing it because they love it and they're generous with it. As I said earlier, I've only known one guy who really worked for money, and I don't want to say his name, but he's a hedge fund manager. And to give you an example of how twisted his world became, I called on him in the mid 90s when I had CIA, and I got called into his office, and he was sitting behind his desk and he's talking on the phone to somebody, and I'm sitting there on a little couch. And so he finally, after about 5 minutes, which made me mad because I didn't want to wait, but he finally hangs up and looks at me and says, "Do you know who I am?" And I said, "Well, yeah, you're so and so." He said, "No, that's not who I'm sure. God damn it, Shirley, bring in my financial statements." So his administrative admin brings in his financial statements. He slaps them down in front of me and says, "That's who I am." I was like, "I don't want to be here. I don't want to work with you. And I don't really like you," because that is the wrong way to live life. If your identity is found in how much money you have, I'm sorry for you. True happiness will never come from that. And I've known lots and lots of people with lots and lots of money, and it's not money that makes them happy. And I will tell you, I've been rich and I've been poor, and this idea of being happy never changes. You can be happy poor too. You can be happy rich. It's a little easier when you're rich because you don't have to worry about small things. But the fact of the matter is, happiness comes from who you are and what you value in life, not from the size of your bank account. And again, that's just one of those truisms of life. And again, Ed, if anybody has comments, they're welcome to raise their hands on this because I'll go, as I said, all night. I
Go
love
ahead.
this and I love the people I'm talking to. The, don't fear risk, right? Another key to the kingdom. Playing it safe is often the riskiest move. Risk is innate in what we do. You can't succeed without risk. And whether you work for a steel company and you start your own business, or you work as a baker and you bake a new recipe, you're taking risk in much of what you do that you find satisfying. When you get married, you take a risk. When you have children, you take a risk. Don't be afraid of risk. Smart risk, when you throw it plus research and courage, it avoids the recklessness. And again, I've been in these problems where I've taken dumb risks. I know what that feels like. I know how easy it is to fall into that trap. So we, as entrepreneurs and independent business people, want to take smart risks. And I've kind of put that here as research plus courage, because don't ignore that research part. And there are tools today with the AI revolution. It's much easier to research things today than it ever has been. So we can get the research on our ideas and the risks we want to take. Let's not avoid it. Let's not ignore it. Let's make sure that we, in fact, are taking those risks with research and then having the courage to do it. Again, I go back to when I started CIA. I was 28 years old or 29. I kind of didn't know what I was doing. I knew I was a really good salesman. So I remember I came out of Wharton, and again, I was flying in private jets, staying at the Ritz-Carltons. I was living the life. When I started CIA, I went out on one of my first trips to New York, and I stayed at the Barbizon Hotel. Now, if you haven't been to New York, this was 40 years ago. The Barbizon was at one point a flop house for homeless people. It wasn't much better when I stayed there. I had a light bulb hanging over the bed, and I had to crawl over the bed to get to this little bathroom thing. And I remember sitting in bed going, my gosh, what have I done to myself? But you know what? I knew it was a risk worth taking. I knew it would pay off if I could persevere. And ultimately it did. And when you talk about perseverance, go look at the Ray Kroc story. This is a guy that failed, moderate success, moderate failure, kind of nobody. But he gets a vision for McDonald's and it bites him and he never lets go of it, even when it almost fails in its first iterations with him. He had the perseverance and the tenacity to keep going because that vision he had was part of him. And that's where, if you've got that bug and you've been bitten by that vision, take smart risk with it, but know that your tenacity and your, what I used to call stick to itiveness, is going to go to that success. It won't be a straight line, I promise you. You'll have ups and downs and emotional upheavals, But at the end of the day, when you look back, you say, you know what? I lived life on my terms and I'm glad I did. I go back, Paul Anka wrote the song My Way. And I think most of the independent business people I know sing that song in one fashion or another because we all feel that way. But this is all about living life on your terms. And to do that, you're going to take risk. So think tonight about one calculated risk that you haven't taken because you're afraid of it, but it aligns with your purposes and it might challenge your comfort zones. I'll give you an example of this. A lot of people are nervous about public speaking and podcasting, but that might really help your business. So maybe that's a risk you want to do. The risk isn't money, it's your own identity. But that's the biggest kind of risk. But there are those things that we can step out of our comfort zone and engage in. And if you get a chance, it makes you a bigger, broader person. So again, try to find something where you can step a little bit out of your comfort zone and maybe make yourself a little bit broader and better for that vision that you have. And then with the risk, don't fear failure. It's not final, folks, it's feedback. There's a statistic that the average millionaire has been bankrupt twice. Milton Hershey went bankrupt. Henry Ford went bankrupt. Ray Kroc did. I don't know if he did or almost did. Steve Jobs almost did. Donald Trump did. I mean, it's not uncommon, folks. Failure is a thing we deal with. You and I, if you're going to take a risk, you're going to have some failure, period. And I will tell you, I've had success and I've had failure, and they both can get you like an enlightened attitude. Failure hurts and it's real pain. So if you're going through that, again, I urge you talk to Ed or a mentor at SCORE and have them help you get centered again. Turn the lemons into lemonade. Wake up tomorrow that it's a new day and I can come back from this nightmare. Failure is with all of us, but ultimately it's an attitude. And if you don't quit, you haven't failed. You simply started again. And that's a fact. So you learn the lesson, you adjust the plan, and you move forward always. Again, it's so trite to say it and so trivial, but tomorrow is, in fact, the first day of the rest of your life. Make it that. And so don't fear the risk, because if failure can't hurt you, nothing can. And again, it's painful. I'm not suggesting it as a way of life or as something you want to do. But when it happens, you have to realize that it isn't final, it's feedback. So reflect tonight on some of your failures. Write down the lessons you've learned. Sometimes the introspection that takes is really hard because it's easy to blame others for the failure that you've had. And again, I can tell you personal stories if we had all night. I told Ed recently of a failure of one of my companies that's costing me dearly. It's painful. Now, it'd be easy for me just to blame the guys who ran the business and go, you guys did this to me. But I have to look at my own involvement, my lack of supervision, or whatever the things I did was. So take a moment to look at some failures you've had, whether it's a personal failure with a divorce. And yeah, I've been there too. And I can talk to you about how painful that can be. But if you've got kids, and I can talk to you about that because I've had two of mine that tried to commit suicide. So I know what that's like. Or it can be in business. But it's all the same. You learn from it and you move on. And you don't let it weigh you down. You let it go, as hard as that is, and you move forward. And when you start to put that willingness to take risk together with taking out the fear of failure, you're set on a path to success. And that's why I put that in here, because I think it's critical. Ed, what are your thoughts? I'll call on you.
Well, I'll tell you a story that everybody talk about failure. I always like to tell this a lot of people. I come from the baking industry. There was a gentleman by the name of Charlie Lubin. This gentleman went bankrupt 5 times. And he decided at that time to try something different, and it was to bake product and freeze it and put it in freezers. And this gentleman's name was Charlie Lubin, but his daughter's name was Sarah Lee.
That's a Paul Harvey rest of the story, right?
Yeah. So to what Steve is saying, that's a true story. And the gentleman, as I said, he went belly up 5 times in the baking industry, but the 6th time he tried it, it was a charm. So never give up. That's
We
my antidote. Anybody else got questions or comments about that? If not, we'll let Steve move on.
Well, either I'm really good at it or I'm really boring.
I think everybody's absorbing like a sponge.
Well, the next point on this is to trust your instincts.
Okay.
Because again, here, intuition is experience distilled. How many times in my life did my gut tell me what to do and my brain overthought it and I regretted it? One of the businesses that, again, I've touched on that I have as a real problem for me right now, had a guy running it. And when he was doing certain things in the business, my gut told me this isn't right. I don't trust it. I don't know what's going on. But the fear, uncertainty, and doubt that I had replacing him or trying to, come down on him too hard, all of that stupid stuff. Well, in the end, my gut was right. But I didn't follow it because I thought, I know better than myself. Well, okay, really? Seriously, we're going to play that game? You trust your gut. Now, again, I go back and I am a big, big proponent of business coaches and business mentors because so often we have these business questions that you have an employee problem or you have a product problem or a regulatory problem. And you're sitting there behind your desk and the weight of the world is on your shoulders and you don't know where to go. I've seen countless times small businesses that have a key employee. Now, they don't have a lot of free cash flow, so they can't afford to replace that person, but that person has become toxic. So they don't know what to do. They're stuck with this really bad resource, but they don't know how to get rid of them because how do they replace them when they have no money to replace them? Da 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 da. That's where a mentor or a coach can get you some sound thought and let you come to the conclusion you know has to be done. That's one of the hardest situations there is to let that person go because you're afraid. It's scary. What will I do? Where will I find somebody to replace him? But you have to be willing to trust your gut and say, you know what? This time around, I have to follow it. And it really helps to have a mentor to get you there. So I urge you at the bottom here, pay attention to something this week where your gut speaks. And it happens to us all the time. It happens when you're ordering food or when you're buying something online or when you're talking to your spouse or your kids. You always have these contradictions between what I feel is right and what I think has to be done. Those two things battle back and forth constantly. And it helps to have a brainstorm about it. But sometimes you got to just trust your gut and say, you know what? I know this is right. So when you get that conflict between the head and the heart, do your best to have somebody to talk to about it because it is really tough. And again, I'm speaking to you from experience. This is not academic to me. This has been Richard Nixon wrote a book called Six Crises, and it was the 6 major crises in his life. If I ever wrote that book, I think I'd have a lot more crises than that. I mean, that's life. Again, we're entrepreneurs. We take risks. We win, we lose, we win, we lose, we win, we lose. That's the nature of the game. But it's a game that we love and that we play willingly. And the key here, and this is one of my last ones, but be faithful. Faith anchors you when reason runs out. It gives meaning and all the rest. I do a thing called the 5 paths to a transformed life, and I give a lot of speeches on it. And it talks about the need to integrate finance, psychology, intellect, physical health, and spiritual health into one thing. The reason for that is because the spiritual path, and you choose your own. I have mine and I'm open to talk about it anytime, but you choose your own, but it gives you that perspective to look upwards instead of inwards. At the times that we're super successful, it grounds us to know that maybe we're not the end all be all here. Maybe we had a little help. In the times that we're in the pit of the valley, well, it helps us to have some perspective to look up and say, there's more to this life than what I'm going through. We have to be grounded. So I urge you to take some private time, 30 minutes a day. And this is really hard for you to do. I know that because it's hard for me. It's very hard for me to do this. But try to take 30 minutes and just put it into prayer, meditation, reconnecting with the purpose of what you're doing. It's the why. And it's that why that is going to drive your success. It's not the money, it's not the outcomes, it's the why. And it's that spiritual foundation, that faithfulness that you have. And again, you can choose. I have my ways, but you can choose your own. But I urge you to put this in the thoughts of your life. I've dealt with agnostics, atheists, devout Christians, Muslims, Jewish people across the board. And I tell them all the same thing. If you're an agnostic or an atheist, you better come to grips with a higher purpose. Because if you're the center of the universe, that's a miserable place to be. I told you I've dealt with suicide. Now, thankfully, it's never happened. I've had attempted stuff in my kids, but never for real. And that's another story about a dysfunctional marriage. But here's the reality. Now, Ed, are we still on?
Yes, you're still on.
Oh, my screen changed. I didn't know if people could still see it.
Oh yeah, yeah.
Oh, but what I was telling you is this story. And one of the times I was talking to someone very close to me, and they were going through a really hard time, and they were fundamentally depressed. And I sat with them and I expressed to them that part of the solution to their depression was to get out of themselves. They existed in their own mind. This person spent time in their apartment all alone. When they went to work, they were isolated in their own head. That is the most toxic place you can be. So I urge them to go give back, go to a shelter, give out food, realize that there's more to this life than you. And that person now is living a happy, fulfilled life. So this faithfulness, this foundation that we all have and that we all need is real. And so if you're going through the trials and tribulations of independent and employment, try to get in touch with your faithful side. So final thoughts, everything is everything. None of those are more important. They're all important. It all matters. So when you align your attitude, your effort, your vision, your love, your humility, your generosity, your courage, all of it, you build a permanence to your life and your enterprise that lasts. It's how you become grounded in true success, not the fly by night success, but the true success that when you go to bed with the only person that really matters, and that's you, and you look in the mirror, you can say, you know what? I'm happy with me. I did my best. Good or bad, outcome independent. I did my best. And so these things become keys to, I think, how we put into perspective the goals that we have. And so here I talk about set one clear goal in each of these paths. Try to improve on your emotional path, your intellectual path, learn something new. Again, Ed and I did a thing on the digital economy. That's a very interesting future that we all enjoy. And the intellectual nature of it at this point is critically important to understand. Be physically healthy. That's so trite and trivial. Everybody talks about it. I'm a big fan of Dr. Gundry. Some of you may know him. My wife, I think, is his best friend. But the point is, there's ideas on how you can get supplements and how you can live a healthier life. Do it. And then review and adjust and celebrate, because progress is not perfection. And for the perfection there doesn't define it. Success is the journey. So enjoy the journey. And then, as I say at the bottom, choose one of the 5 paths, write out a measurable goal for yourself. How do you want to be on the emotional path? I worked with a guy years and years ago, and I'd call him in the morning because when I called him and I said, "How are you?" the first thing out of his mouth, "I'm super." Now, whether he was or not, it kind of made me laugh. And I started doing it. So people say, "How are you?" I'm like, "I'm super." And I found myself smiling when I said it. So my day started off with a smile. Is there anything better you can ask for? It's not phony if it's real, right? And if it's a real joy that you feel, then hey, give it back. So anyway, Ed, that's kind of my thoughts on this one. Obviously, I've got lots more in my head, but for tonight, I hope that this has been something that people can take home and say, this is good stuff.
Good. Just a reminder, folks, I'll send you the recording of this tomorrow and the slides that Steve used. Mark Myers, you jumped on a little bit later, so let you know you will get a recording and the slides of this. Is there anything, anybody, Mark, you're new here. We kind of had everybody introduce themselves. Is there anything you'd like to talk to Steve about, or any questions about, what he covered and, maybe of what you missed? Is there anything you'd like to comment, Mark? I've got you unmuted. You can go ahead and speak. Mark, you got to unmute yourself to talk. Left-hand corner of your screen, you should have audio, and if you click on that, you should be able to unmute yourself. Your talking is permitted. Okay. All right, I'll kind of go down the line while Mark is trying to figure that out. Abdullah, anything you want to add to Steve? Well, how about Jason? It looks like you unmuted, Jason. Go ahead.
Nothing that I want to add. I've taken notes on all of this and enjoyed listening to it. I'm going to think about it for the next few days, and probably then I'll have something that I would ask questions about. But right now, nothing.
Feel free. Abdullah, anything you want to talk about? Okay, Abdullah, you got to unmute yourself. How about Jim? Jim, anything to add to this? Okay. And last but not least, Melissa. Oh, there we go. Jim, go ahead and speak.
Yeah, nothing to really add other than it's great stuff. You have lived quite a life there, Steve. Thank you for, I don't know if too many, I assume you're a well-off individual, so there's not a lot of people that spend time with us wannabes or us, climbing up the hill. And I definitely appreciate it. Thanks for your time, and you too, Ed. You spend a lot of time with us.
You are more than welcome. And sometime we'll have a drink and I'll tell you how what you just said may not be true.
Okay.
Look forward to it.
Anybody else want to speak? If not, folks, I'm going to wrap it up this evening. Thank you all for coming. I hope you gleaned some new knowledge. Steve, big thank you to you for volunteering your time and sharing your expertise with us this evening. And folks, catch up with us. Again, if you need help, come to SCORE. If you don't know who we are or don't have a SCORE mentor yet, come to us. We're here to help you guys. So with that, I wish everybody a good evening, and we'll see you at future workshops. Take care, everybody.
Thank you.